Hi there, Year 4. So we're going to do our fourth lesson of the week. Now, I know it's only our third geography lesson, but you did outdoor learning yesterday, so I'm still going to call it lesson 4. So we're going to have a look at what it was like in an Anglo-Saxon settlement today, and it's important that we do that because the land and the settlements will have been very similar in this time as when King Arthur was around as well, or the legend says that he was around. So for now, if you could just pause the video and write today's date and learning objective, which is to explore the features of an Anglo-Saxon settlement. Today we're going to be looking at different features of settlements. So that just means a settlement is like a village or a small town or a place where there's a group of houses and a group of people living together. It's where they settle. And we're going to be creating a map of an Anglo-Saxon settlement as well. So imagine you're an Anglo-Saxon who's arrived in Britain and you're looking for a place to build your settlement or village. What are your basic needs for a settlement? What kind of things would you need, as well as shelter? What else do you think you would need? How are you going to make sure you would have enough food and drinking water? And how would you defend yourself against other tribes? If you pause the video and you can make a list of all of the things you think you would need in a settlement in order to live. Pause the video and do that now, please. So in settlements, generally, they have a lot of the same features. You would still need food, you would still need shelter, you would still need water. That doesn't matter that this was hundreds of years ago, they would still need the same basic things. So we're going to go through the features of Anglo-Saxon settlements, then I'm going to show you a bit of a video of a recreation of a Saxon settlement as well. So houses, they were usually wooden huts with thatched straw roof, but they sometimes used something called wattle and daub as well. You'll find out a bit more about that in the video. They had a hall, which was the largest house in the village, and the chief lived there with his warriors, so the head of the village. They needed fields where crops could be grown because they had to farm for their own food. They didn't have Tesco's or Morrison's where they could just nip off for a pint of milk and a loaf of bread. They had to make all their own food. They needed animal enclosures to keep the animals from running away and also to protect them from being attacked by wolves. They needed huts for tradespeople. They needed trees to use for wood, for fires, and to give protection from attackers. They had high fences all around to keep out attackers and wild animals. And they needed a river because they needed water for people and the animals. So now we're just going to watch a bit of video. It's a recreation of an Anglo-Saxon village.
This is a reconstructed Saxon farm at Bede's, which is a museum at Jarrow in the north of England. It's called Jarrow, which is the Saxon word for Jarrow. All of the buildings here are very realistic, and I should know because I'm a Saxon. They've all been built to look as real as possible, but they're not all made from the same Saxon materials. Some are made from wood, some from wattle and daub, some from all three. Wattle is made from sticks which you weave together, and daub is the mud that we use to fill in the holes and bind it. Sometimes we'd use manure for daub, which is great at keeping your home warm and dry. But when it was fresh, sometimes it could be a bit smelly. These buildings were our houses, but also served as workshops where we do weaving and other Saxon crafts. Anything which we made, which we couldn't actually use in the village ourselves, we trade it for things that we couldn't make or grow. All Anglo-Saxon homes were made from natural materials, so they've tended to rot over time. Unfortunately, there are no original Anglo-Saxon settlements left in Britain today. Most Saxons lived on villages and farms like this because they provided everything they needed: food, warmth, shelter for all your family and friends. We were used to living on farms in our homelands, so when we came to Britain, we weren't really interested in the old Roman towns. Places like Cirencester, St Albans and London, they were all very busy in Roman times, but during Saxon times, they became much smaller. Richer Saxons lived in palaces. Archaeologists have found the remains of a wooden palace built for the King of Northumberland at Yavering. But normal Saxons, the ordinary ones, lived in ordinary houses. In the early days, Saxon buildings were made from wood because it was easy to find. We didn't really use stone because it was much too heavy to transport. But later, some special Saxon buildings were made from stone, and some of these can still be seen in Britain today. St Paul's Church in Jarrow dates back to the year 681 AD. It was a Saxon church, but some parts of it have been rebuilt over the years. But the chancel, this bit here, is from the first building and even has some genuine Saxon stained glass. This is the church where Bede worshipped. He lived at the monastery nearby and wrote about the Saxons in some magnificent handwritten books that still survive in the 21st century. We Saxons ruled in parts of Britain for over 600 years. We arrived from other countries. We were really called Anglo-Saxons. Saxon is just a shorter way of saying it. Now, I don't mind being called an Anglo-Saxon or a Saxon, but don't call me a Viking, because I'm not.
So, your job for this lesson is you're going to create a map of an Anglo-Saxon settlement. And remember, it needs to have houses, it needs to have a water source. If we go back to this slide here, you'll need to mark fences, you will need to mark on where fields can grow crops and things like that. Make sure that your map contains a key so that we know what each symbol represents. And then you can colour it in coloured pencils, pens, you could paint it if you've got paints at home. Or if you want to extend your learning even further, why not have a go at making a model of an Anglo-Saxon settlement? Have fun. I think you'll enjoy this one, and I will see you tomorrow.